Pulled up, made my appearance. You can't sit with us without clearance. That lame shit, never let it near us. And your girl'll choose my team cause you still living with your parents. Flexing on the gram with your paycheck.
All right, guys, what's up? I wanted to welcome you back to the Our Culture Podcast. This is episode number 7. Today, me and Nick are going to be talking, and I think this is going to be a cool discussion for you guys. We're going to be talking about champion mindset, and I wanted to specifically have Nick on because I think he's somebody that grasps this so well. From a coaching perspective, I not only see this in him, and I get to experience this with him, but I also see a lot of basically what I feel has made me successful in him, but channeled in a different way. So we're going to get into that. I also thought this was kind of extremely cool timing. 2 days ago, Nick and I, we were talking about this podcast and doing it and just discussing what we wanted to talk about, why we wanted to talk about it. And then obviously yesterday was a 1-year anniversary of Kobe's death, which that was a death that really, really impacted me. And I never expected somebody that I didn't know on a personal level to impact me the way that his was. And I think ultimately it kind of goes full circle with what we're talking about in this podcast, in that I struggled with his death because I basically studied everything that he ever did, any insight that he ever put out in terms of his mentality. And it wasn't so much that I was obsessed with Kobe the athlete. I was more so obsessed with Kobe's mental approach, which led him to the athlete that he's been. And then something else that probably nobody knows is that, Nick, you were the first person to text me last year when the news broke that he died. So there's like another connection there. But I want to jump into basically the reason why I thought this podcast would be so cool is because it was kind of brought to my attention last week on Fuad's podcast. He asked me like the role that I've played in Nick's development. And one of the first things that he said to me is like, do you think you've helped Nick in terms of his robotic nature and his commitment to his daily lifestyle? And I honestly said no, because I think that that's something that you've had for a long time. So let's talk about that. Like, when did that start for you? When did things start to click? Why did it start to click?
Well, I think I probably get it from my mother. She was always, even when she was younger, she had to be the best at whatever she did. And I think that passed down to me. And normally, if I know I'm not good at something, I'd kind of just let it go. But if I feel I have the potential to be great at something, I will go all out. I'm all in 100%. And that even extended when I was, 5, 6, 7 years old when I started playing baseball. And, even, when I had scheduled practices, me and my dad, we would practice before practice. And then we'd practice even more after practice. And then even after practices, or on off days when I didn't have practice, we practice more because I knew I had to be the best, and that's all I wanted to be with anything I did. And that extended over when I played soccer. Whether I was on the defense, I had to be the best defender. Whether I was a striker, I had to be the best striker. I had to score the most goals. I had to make sure I was defending my goalie properly. No matter what it was, I had to be the best at whatever I did. And that extended through everything, basically. And basically after that, I got pretty bored of it. That's when a lot of things tragically happened in my life.
All right, let's stop there for just a second. So you just said something that also I know that Kobe was synonymous for, or anonymous for, whatever the correct word is. Kobe, he never played, he was never a golfer. Like a big hobby for basketball guys is on their off days to go play golf. He never played golf because he knew that it wasn't something that he was going to excel in because he didn't put the time into. And you literally just said, you've never tried to do something you knew you weren't 100% in on. Mm-hmm. Now, you playing sports, and I think I want to talk about this too, because I think a lot of guys, you might not even realize this, but a lot of younger guys are starting to look up to you. And I told you yesterday that you are well advanced beyond your years in terms of your mental approach to this. So I think there's a lot that, younger guys, I hope you guys are listening to this. Because a lot of Nick's success is not really so much what he does in the 60 to 90 minutes that he's in here training. It's the rest of the day, how he structures his life. So did you start to have that type of structure playing ball? Or basically at that age, was it more so when you were at practice, you turned it on, and the rest of the day you kind of turned it off?
It was like that.
Okay, so it was more so you turned it on for practice, and then you kind of just lived the rest of your life as a kid?
Pretty much.
Okay. Now let's go on to the next chapter of your life. And then we'll go from there.
So after, I pretty much up until high school, or even before that, I played baseball pretty much a freshman year in high school. When I was going back even further, when I was molested as a child, that person was a baseball coach. And then that steered me away from playing anymore. I didn't want to play anymore. I was done with it. And then that extended into my weightlifting, where I just released all my stress and anger and everything else. But from there, that pretty much incorporated when I started my whole drug party scene, everything else. And it was fun.
But you're still weightlifting.
Yeah, I always weightlifted, but it was like I was one of those,
Gym tan laundry guys.
kind of, yeah. One of those guys.
Not kind of.
I did tan and spike my hair in high school, yeah. But that was pretty much, I was still, pretty big then, but I was in the party scene doing all the drugs to, take my mind off everything. And even during my first prep out of high school, I was, not fully committed. I was only 17 years old. I took third in the teen division, so it was nothing serious for me. I didn't know. I enjoyed it. I loved it, but I didn't know if I had something yet. So the following year when I did East Coast, I won the whole teen division and took third in the Open. And then I did the Easterns in New York the following weekend, and I won the teen division, and then I took seventh in the Open. And at that moment, being so young, going against a lot of bigger dudes, especially at Easterns, that was at the time one of the most competitive regional shows in New York. So then that was the moment when I knew I had something going on, and that was when everything started to change. I'd stopped partying. I became very strict with everything. Like even how I am now. I woke up at the same time. I ate at the same time. I trained at the same time. Went to bed at the same time. Nothing ever changed. And I stopped partying. I stopped going out. I even, because I didn't know, I was so mentally instilled in my whole entire day, I would even miss family events just because I didn't want to pack a meal and misweigh it by accident. And everything was just so in tuned by what I was doing that day that I never went out of the schedule.
Okay, so that prep for Easterns, you would say in terms of being all in, what percentage of you before like you really flipped a switch?
Right after I took third.
Yeah, that prep you took third.
That off season, I even though I took third, and I didn't know it was gonna be that serious. I knew the prep didn't go well for me because I had too many coaches, I listened to too many people.
Yeah.
I mean, I started that prep at 230 pounds and weighed 159 on stage, and I knew that just right. If I had the proper guidance, I would have been a lot better. So at that time, I hired a coach for the off season and then into prep, and I knew, seeing how I was looking, right then and there, I was like, okay, I'm all in.
Yeah.
And then extended to me winning the teen divisions and doing well against a lot of older guys that I never thought I would.
Yeah. It's funny you bring up about, and I know so many bodybuilders can just kind of grasp onto this, but you just brought up the weighing the meals. I remember there was a period, and this is unhealthy behavior. I'm going to go ahead and say that. But there was a period when I was bodybuilding where I would weigh everything 3 times before I would eat it.
I've done that.
Yeah, I'm sure. Like, what kind of things have you done that's
there
crazy
was
to that level?
There's every prep. I'm gonna tell you right now. It's every prep, including our preps. I would go through a period where I would weigh my chicken, and then weigh my rice over it, and be like, I don't think I weighed my chicken right. Throw it out and start over.
Yeah, I've done that. Another thing. So, let's talk about.
Well, I'm happy to know I'm not the only one.
Let's talk about, because I know it. Basically, I know pretty much 99% of the time what Nick is doing at each point of his day, and even now, guys. I think it's so cool because everything that Nick does on social media that's catching on like wildfire, from the mustard and the cinnamon to the specific drink that he gets. I think there's this concept that what you're doing is cool, but literally what you're doing is militant, and it's just catching on. It's you're really showing people how you live your life, and then people are like, oh, this combination tastes good, or this drink tastes good, but for you, it's like, this is all I'm getting. This is the only option.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go through your day now, the day structure now that you're in prep. What does that look like for you?
So now,
and not so much you sitting on the couch, but the specifics of things that you have to do that are the same thing every day. What does that look like?
So now I get up probably around 7:30. I go right from there. I go to the gym, do my cardio. I come home. I
Well, hold
shower.
on. You've missed a few things.
What'd I miss?
You get up and you go to the bathroom.
You want to be
Step on the-
specific
yeah,
about
You
that?
step on the scale.
Okay, well then I'll get
Yeah.
specific here. So I get up at 7:30. I drop a nice deuce, wash my hands, and then I step on the scale every morning.
And then you text me.
And then I text you my weight.
Yeah.
And then I take raw burn, my yohimbine. I drink a liter of water, and then I drive to the gym. I do my 25 minutes of cardio. Then after that, I'll sometimes do abs and calves. I do that every other day. And then I'll probably.
Calves are small.
And then depending if I need some grocery shopping, I run to Publix right by the house. Well, I go there every day just to buy 2 things of gallons of water every day, and I weigh a liter out with every meal that I do. And then I come home, I have my daily green shake, I shower, and I eat at 10:30. And then I basically chill. And then I have my next meal by 1. And then I'm here by 2 training. And then probably around 4:30-ish, sometimes 5, I have my post meal. And then I'll go home, shower, have my next meal. And then I'm chilling. And then I have my next meal, and I'm chilling, have my next meal, and then I just go to bed.
And you're in bed by what time?
Usually, right now, by like 11.
Okay.
But as I get closer to the show, that's going to get earlier.
Right. Now, this is, I guess, ultimately what I'm getting at in all this, and what I want you guys to see is in terms of champion mentality, why do you think to you this is so important? Why do you think that structure is so important?
It's consistency. And I feel when you have a set schedule every single day and you know what you're doing, the results are just better that way. If you're going every day, getting out of your routine, you got to train at this time, at a different time every day, you got to eat at this time, different time every day. Nothing's ever structured. It's never organized. And I don't like to live like, especially when I start to see results. Like I wake up every morning, my weight's going down, I look better here, and I know my routine is working. I don't ever switch. I never change it, no matter what I do. Like down to the fucking grain of salt that I use, nothing changes. And I believe that is one of the most important things. Like I even said in a post, if you were to say for the next 16 weeks you can't leave your fucking house unless it's to go to the gym, I'll do it. I don't care.
Yeah.
I do what I got to do to win, and that's it. Whatever it takes to be the best is what I'm going to do.
Yeah. And for me, guys, from a coaching perspective, it's, and I want to talk about people other than Nick for just a second, but somebody, when I was thinking about this topic and wanting to present this to you, like Michaela Aycock was a girl that came to my mind right off the bat. She was a girl that I spent years with. She was in my house several times, and she had this same militant approach to literally every single detail within her craft, and it was because she wanted to be the best. And another common thing, crazy, I want to talk about a crazy thing really quick. Like, there was a point in my prep when I was 21, 22, 23 years old, I could not go to bed until I laid my pills out for the next day. And part of that was because I had to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I just felt like I was behind if that was a task that I had to do in the morning. But when I welcomed Michaela into our home and we spent several times together, she was the same exact way. Like, a lot of people on the outside looking in look at that as being crazy, but I think for those of us that get it, that's part of what leads to success, but anyway, so back to coaching these individuals. Coaching Michaela was, in some ways, her body was difficult, but because of her consistency and in a lot of other ways, she was extremely easy to coach because I always knew everything. Same thing with Nick. Like, we had a little bit of a hiccup at the beginning of last prep, but then I think since last prep, we've just continued to grow relationally so much. That's part of the reason why he's down here. That's part of the reason right now while we're in the same room. Like, I get to see Nick on a daily basis now, and no, I'm not looking at his posing on a daily basis, but like, the more I learn about how Nick clicks, the more I learn about what drives him, what bothers him, his day-to-day activity. Because when I was in Georgia and he was in New Jersey, I didn't get to see his daily activity. I didn't get to see how serious he truly was, because a lot of people can say that they're serious, and then they show up and you see something completely different. Mm-hmm. I've spent a lot of time with Nick over the past few weeks, few months. It doesn't matter where he's at, his cooler is always with him. And again, it depends on what type of person that you are that's watching this. Some people could call that crazy. Some people know that that's what it takes, because Nick's doing this to be the best, to be the absolute best he can be. So when everybody else around him And that's something I respect so much about him, is when everybody else around him might not be sticking to the plan or going with the flow, or even myself right now. Like, I'm a lot more lax right now in terms of my quote-unquote bodybuilding because of my injury. He's dead on. You know, he's not persuaded by anybody. He's not influenced by anybody. And back to that coaching thing, I appreciate that so much because it takes away the inconsistent variables where I can just know exactly what's going on. You know, we even just had a little bit of an issue with his weight. He had a big weight drop, and then it didn't make any sense. But because of the fact that he's so consistent, we can narrow it down like that. You know, whereas with other people, there's no telling. You know, I mean, you could have 20 different variables because no variable within that plan is consistent. Do you think, other than your mom, like, you grasped this from anybody else, whether a bodybuilder or athlete?
Yeah, I mean, I could say Jay Cutler. You know, I watched all his videos, how serious he was, how, you know, he lived in a box and did this and, you know, cut people off and shut his phone off and no negativity. So, yeah, I caught a little bit of that, and that made me think, oh, you have to be that serious. And doing it now, I believe, like, when it comes to success, there has to be some type of obsession to be the best. And, you know, that's just where I'm at.
Yeah. And two, like, something else that I've noticed about you is, I think, so from my perspective as a coach and somebody that's coaching you, I think in some ways, like, this offseason, I think has been good for you because I've wanted to get you a little bit more relaxed. And ultimately, the reason why I want to get you more relaxed is because I know how locked in you are, you know, and I know, like, he's 26 years old and he wants to do this until he's 40, or basically, we talked about this the other night. You want to do this until your body says no.
Yeah, pretty much.
You know, so with that being said, I feel a responsibility on myself to make sure that his mind can withhold that for the next 14 years. And obviously, when you're in the moment, you can very easily say, yeah, I'm good, I'm going to be good. But, like, you have to know when the breaking point is. And for him, I don't think he's anywhere near a breaking point. But I think it's my job to save him from that breaking point, you know, because I've seen those breaking points in other athletes. You know, even with Dallas, like, there was a time we were like 4 weeks out of the Olympia in 2016, and in his kitchen, he's like, Matt, I don't know how much longer I can do this, you know, because at that point, I think he had been really locked in for 3 years, and the pressure of Dallas McCarver, the body and the frame and the expectations was just getting to him.
Yeah.
And I think the difference between you and him is, to a certain extent, like, I know you're on social media a lot. Mm-hmm. But I think to a certain extent, over the last 2 years, you've really matured about what has been said about you. Whereas, like, the difference is like Dallas would literally seek out what was being said about him, and it would bother him, and then it would bother him, and it would build on him, you know. And I don't really see that in you as much right now. Because if that were the case, that would be something else that I would try to protect him from. But really, I think, you know, I say this a lot, especially with guys like, you talk about Nick, you talk about Brett Wilkin, you talk about Michaela Aycock, like, these people that I'm really totally just in the driver's seat. And I've told Nick this before, and he might have his own piece to say about this, but I know that there are several coaches right now that could get him to the top. You know, so the fact that he's allowed me to have that job is something that's a privilege to me. But yet within that, like, I have to try to always be thinking one step ahead in terms of how are we going to continue this and how are we going to make this sustainable long term. Because I don't want him to get burnt out. I don't want him to be sucked into social media culture, which is very hard because as bodybuilders right now, you guys are basically expected to deliver in social media culture. Mm-hmm. But yet you also, like you said, Jay Cutler, when he was at his prime, he didn't even have to entertain the idea of being on social media. Nope. You know, so he really could be locked in. Whereas now, you know, like, his contract was so much based off of the magazines and print. Whereas your contract, and you are making good money, but it's based off of
social media.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
So I think that I didn't want to get sidetracked here and basically say that I'm trying to withhold Nick from his mental mindset. It's more so that I respect it so much that I want to make sure that we can sustain it long term. You know, like, And that's why I've done what we've done. So let's talk about like this off season and the joke that you made that you had more cheat meals this off season than you've had since you were 7 years old or whatever you said.
I did.
Yeah. Like how was that for you mentally?
It was a nice break. It was, because you're right, I am so locked in that even last year, before I even moved here, when we were off season for North Americans, I don't think I've had many.
Except for when you came down.
Yeah, and I think that was about it.
Yeah.
You know, even like family, I would go out with them and bring my own food.
Right.
You know, as I've done a couple of times when we've gone out.
Yeah.
But it was nice because I got to see that it, you know, didn't affect me that much. Because I was so used to thinking I hold so much water that it's just going to give me a bad look. It's going to do this. And I didn't, this entire offseason just went very smooth. I didn't hold barely much water than I normally do. Training was always great, and I felt great. So I was a nice little mental break.
Yeah, so what I did, guys, is I basically, we approached his off-season with the goal of coming out of his show, trying to keep water retention to a minimum, trying to keep that initial weight just fast rebound to a minimum, and just keep his body stable. And then once we got his body really stable, which happened pretty soon in the first 2 weeks post-show, then I started implementing cheat meals on the weekend, where basically I was just allowing him to eat whatever he wanted, and the day that he chose was on Sunday. So the most you got to was what, three cheat meals or
a day or a
Sunday?
week? Yeah,
on Sunday. Yeah, so he was basically doing 3 cheat meals on Sunday, and then pretty much it averaged out to 2 diet meals on Sunday. And it wasn't like, this is what I want to convey to you guys too, like it wasn't like he was eating until he couldn't move. You know, it was more so he was allowed to go have a breakfast with this friend, and then, you know, for one weekend we might have been out and we were celebrating Dom's birthday, and then that kind of went into us just hanging out, you know, at a after party thing for a while, and then he was able to have another meal and not have to be so meal focused.
Yeah.
So basically we pulled his meals back on his cheat day to 5 meals instead of 6. 2 to 3 of those meals were cheats, whatever you wanted. Mm-hmm. And then 2 diet meals. And within that being said, again, because he's so mentally locked in, like this was never a mental battle for him of, okay, well, I'm going to eat as much as I can because I don't know when my next cheat meal is. Well, first and foremost, he knew he had 2 or 3 more that day, or 1 to 2 more that day. And also, this is end goal focus. So Nick looking at a cheat meal, it's more so like, how is this going to help me perform tomorrow? How is this not going to impact my digestion? And kind of knowing those limitations, you know? Mm-hmm. And it really has worked well. And I've seen him, like, I feel like every week that he's here, not only is he more relaxed, but he's more of himself, and he's more the funny guy that you guys now all know from Fuad's podcast. But it's been awesome, you know, because, like, again, like, my goal within this was to essentially create this sustainability long term where we could keep that mental focus and that drive locked in. Next question I have, and I think I know we share the same answer on this, but do you think that this is something that people are born with, or do you think it can be learned? Or to what degree can each be had?
I think you're born with it.
I agree.
I don't think it can be taught. I mean, I think to some extent, like, you can learn it to an extent, but you're born with that mentality.
Yeah.
Like, you either have it or you don't.
Yeah. So, like, for you, when you went through your party phase, it wasn't so much that you lost it. It's just that you let it go.
Yeah.
And then when it was time for it to come back, you just knew how to bring it back.
Yep, and that was it.
Yeah, yeah. And I was the same way. I remember my mom tells the story to this day, but there was an Eddie George. You don't even know who Eddie George is, but do you know who Eddie George is?
Is that a country singer?
No.
Oh.
Okay, so there's Eddie George. He's a running back
don't.
for the Tennessee Titans, and there was I believe it was an Adidas video where it was basically like a video through his life, and he was running cone drills outside in his front yard. He had a hill in his front yard. Well, at the age of 7, 8, 9, I had the same hill in my front yard, and I was setting cone drills out and doing all these things on my own just because at that point I wanted to do anything I could to be a professional athlete. You know, it wasn't forced on me. None of my friends were doing it. My friends would come over. They would think I was crazy. Another funny story I have for you, Jim Haymore, when we were in 8th grade, he came over to the house, and I said, hey, let's go for a run. And he's like, sure, man. You know, and so we went for this run, and he literally was like, Matt, he's like, when can we stop? You know, like, and I'm like, dude, like, we still have 4 more laps. Like, just keep going. And he still tells that story to this day because here it is, 8th grade kids that thinks he's coming over to have fun, and I take him for
a run.
So, yeah, I mean, I think this is something that is like innate nature that can't be taught. You know, so from a coaching perspective, when you get an athlete that has it, it's like, it's awesome. You know, I know Phil Jackson said that, like going back to Kobe, he was one of the hardest guys that he ever coached, but yet also one of the easiest, because he didn't ever have to expect things out of him or ask things out of him. Now, Kobe demanded a lot out of Phil.
Yeah.
You know, in the same way, like there's an unwritten, like I know that Nick demands a lot out of me. But yet it's respected because the work is there, you know, and I think that's the difference is like, I want to show up to work for you. I want to help you as best as I can because you put every ounce of effort you have into this.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely.
Trying to think. Okay, so in terms of, I know that we just said that this can't be taught, but for kids that look up to you, for kids that are trying to grasp what this looks like for them, whether it's in the bodybuilding realm, whether it's in whatever they're trying to do, you know, the business realm, what would you encourage them to focus on?
Consistency. You know, when you have a certain, like I said, it's all about routine, in my opinion. When you have a certain routine that works, you stick with it. And once you find that routine, you stick with it. Like with training, it's like with certain, it comes down to even certain exercises. When you find your certain exercise pattern that works and you're getting results, you stick with it. You don't change it.
Yeah.
So whatever you find that works for you, you stick with it, and that's it.
Yeah. I and something else too, it just came to my mind. I talked about this a little bit last week, but there's not a successful business person that I know. Anybody that I look up to, two things about them. I don't know anybody that's truly successful on a very, very high level that sleeps past 7 o'clock in the morning. That's number one. And number two, I don't really know anybody that's extremely successful that doesn't have a set routine for every single day that they live. Other than, let's say, a Sunday of family time where things are kind of broken off structure. But, you know, I mean, for example, like, and I know this was very highly publicized last year, but it came to mind, like Mark Wahlberg's daily plan. Do you remember seeing that?
I do.
and some of it was kind of like crazy because, I mean, it was like he golfed twice a day or whatever it was, but the point of the matter is,
it was every day.
It was every day. That structure was there every day. He took phone calls at the same time every day. He had breakfast with his family at the same time every day. I saw another thing that was pretty interesting last week on Instagram that, like, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, like basically the 5 richest guys in the world, they all still have breakfast with their family every morning. You know, so basically we know that these guys are being taken from their family.
100%.
You know, but yet they start that day, with
their
structure
family.
with their family. They set that precedence, and then they go about their day from there. So
that's good.
Anyway, guys, episode 7. We're going to continue to be banging these out. We have Hunter Labrada coming next week. We're excited about that. We're going to get Nick and Hunter training and in here in the room together talking shop. But we appreciate you guys. Please continue to hit the like button, subscribe, share it with your friends, and we'll be back next week.
Got it locked. Tryna gas me up, but she could barely move the needle. Papa's always hating cause they tryna do what we do. I know I'ma make it cause I need to.